Everyone has a bright light inside of them that deserves to be seen by the world. That's why it's time to shine the light on the extraordinary who are accomplishing phenomenal things. This is the Shine Out Loud Show with Lillian Ogbogo.
Hey, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever in the world you are. This is another episode of the Shine Out Loud Show with me, Lillian Ogbogo. Tonight, it's gonna be fun. I have a fantastic woman. She is a podcaster, a coach. She is a blogger. She is a woman with a vast range of experience. But most importantly, she's a woman that has dedicated her life to mentoring other women to take the ideas that live in their heads and bring them to life. She wants more women living a life more inspired. So join me and welcome the fantastic, everly awesome Nicola Rae-Wickham. Hey, Nicola.
What an introduction.
How you doing?
I'm doing really well. Really well. Even better for speaking to you. So.
Awesome. So tonight we are going out live and we are going to be talking about finding our personal path to self-acceptance. Now, for those people who don't know you and don't know who you are, you're an NLP practitioner, you're a mentoring coach, you work with women and your self-worth. So my first question is, how did you go from a marketing career with 10 years of experience behind you and move into coaching?
Well, it all started, I always knew that I wanted to have my own business. Mm-hmm. And when I was on maternity leave, I started my foray into that. And as anyone who's ever started a business or is a business owner will know, that it's one of the biggest personal development journeys that you can ever go on. You suddenly have to look at parts of yourself that you've never had to do before, especially like in the corporate world. Right. And I realized that I needed some support. It was my first business I started where I was helping small businesses with their marketing. Okay. And I myself got a coach. Absolutely loved the process and what we were able to create together. Realized that actually I had this idea and this desire within me to do something similar. So I went and got qualified and certified and followed my heart in terms of going for the idea of a life more inspired, which is what I really wanted to do. And yeah, that's how I kind of went from being a marketing manager in the corporate world to starting my own thing within the coaching mentoring industry.
Okay. And so we've mentioned that you became an NLP practitioner. And for those who are new or unknown to NLP, what is it and how does it work?
Well, it's neuro-linguistic programming, and it really works. What I love about it is that it's not, some coaching modalities can be really surface level. Whereas with NLP, it's looking at the unconscious mind. So it's making kind of real deep change on the kind of cellular level on our unconscious mind that then translates to our behaviors. And then there's different tools and techniques that can be used to be able to kind of initiate that change within us. So.
Okay. So can these principles that we, I love NLP and it's one of my things I'm really passionate about, but from your understanding and your practice, how can it be incorporated into everyday life?
I think there's some key principles of it, and I definitely take my NLP and mix it with other principles and other modalities, but there's things like perception is projection. And that's one of kind of my favorite ones in terms of the way that we're seeing the world isn't always necessarily what is real. And those kind of understandings of our emotions and our feelings gives us that ability to see that our beliefs are stories. Yeah. And we have the ability to then change them. So that's for me personally is one of my favorite kind of parts of it. And what it does is for me is enable us to step back and really see what's going on.
Okay, so and the fact is, people think, oh my God, when they hear the sound of neuro linguistic programming, they think that it's something really deep and dangerous, and they might end up on stage, Darren Brown style, fucking like chickens.
Yeah.
Let's clarify that for them.
Yes, it's not that. It doesn't have to be. I mean, some people do practice it in that kind of way, especially when they mix it with hypnotherapy. But it doesn't have to be that. And definitely the way that I practice it isn't that. It's very much the mindset change, the way that you look at the world, and really recognizing that everybody has different models of the world as well. I think that's a really powerful, especially in this modern age of social media and comparison. And it's so easy to look at somebody else and wonder why they're doing what they're doing, or have kind of tons of judgment poured onto it. But just remembering that simple principle of everybody's got a different model of the world.
Yes.
It just takes so much pressure off. So therefore, there is no point judging X person that you see on social media or comparing yourself to that person, because they are literally viewing the world in a different way to you.
And also, social media just basically means you get to see their show reel or their highlights, and you're comparing it to your work in progress.
Absolutely. I always say that you're comparing your behind the scenes to their front of center stage, their highlight reel. And whenever we do that, it's not going to end well.
No. All right. So we're talking about self-acceptance, and we're talking about mindfulness and well-being. And, this is you. You're a blogger, you're a podcast host, you're a speaker, you're a coach. Did you ever experience suffering imposter syndrome when you started?
Yeah, massively. And I think it's something that I still deal with today on a different level. But in terms of when I started, I think, again, I come back to social media quite a lot, because that's where I spend a lot of my time. It's where I create a lot of my content and kind of interact with my clients. But I feel like with social media, you can go on, especially when you first get started, and then you can see quite clearly people doing what you might want to do, and they've got thousands and thousands of followers, and you're like, how can my voice ever kind of be amplified? How is anyone ever going to hear me amongst their beautifully curated feeds or their kind of amazing engagement? And in that sense, the imposter syndrome was definitely there in the beginning. Also because I had transitioned, so I had initially started kind of as a wedding blogger. I always did that on the side. That was like my side hustle. I was a wedding blogger. Then I moved into my first business, and then I transitioned into the coaching.
Okay.
And so it kind of felt like, I'm now kind of moving into these different realms. So the imposter syndrome, was deep.
Okay, so how did you manage it? What tools, techniques did you use to actually help support that and get you kind of moving further along?
I think with imposter syndrome, it comes back to you and realizing that it's kind of having to be able to turn that light inwards. Why are you doing what you want to do? Why do you feel it's so important? What value are you going to bring? And concentrating on that, and stop looking at what everybody else is doing. And it comes back to that kind of age-old saying that you are your own superpower. Kind of that is what makes you special, is that you are you. And when you focus on that, you're not competing with anyone else. So therefore, there's no need to feel that, I shouldn't have a seat at the table. Am I worthy? Am I deserving of being here? Because you're you, and you have your message, and you have your work to do, and there's people out there who want to hear it. So for me, it was working with my coach at the time to really hone in on that and focus. And it really was adjusting the gaze. It was adjusting the perception of what I was looking at, and then being able to take my seat at the table and really just create a new table.
Oh, I like that. I like the adjusting the gaze, so you're looking internally, but that point that you made about you are your own superhero. That's a fantastic thing. And I think we need as women to be reminded or remind ourselves daily that we are our own superhero. And you've actually pointed something out. You were talking about in this era of social media, you've touched on social media. And I go, looking at social media where at any platform, the buzzwords are well-being and self-love. How can we as women create well-being practices that truly serve us? Because, somebody over there says do A, somebody says do B. How do we create something that really works for us?
I think, first of all, we forget the notion that wellness and well-being is the latest fad. So it's not turmeric lattes, it's not green smoothies, it's not whatever yoga is in that month. It's not spa days or getting our hair done. Like, all of those things are nice, but they're external. So it's looking at, number one, what fills you up inside. But
right.
The key is that what fills you up is going to be different to what fills me up. And so I think it's about experimenting. It's about being open to trying different things. So one of the things I talk about a lot is journaling, because journaling is my jam. I love it. And I understand it's not for all women, but humans. But what I encourage people to do is try it.
Okay.
Try it. See if it's not for you. If it's not at this moment, then cross it off the list and then move on to something else. So I think in terms of finding your wellness practice, it's about experimentation. And another thing is, on any given day, it's asking yourself, what do I need today? We don't do that. We don't stop and actually turn again that light inwards and say, what do I need? Sometimes it's, I need a nap today, or I need to go for a walk today. I need nutritious food. I need a McDonald's.
Wait, Nicola. Did you just throw in a McDonald's? Oh, God. I see wellness angels falling out of the sky. What are you doing, woman? You mentioned McDonald's.
No, in the same paragraph as wellness. But it's about, I'm not saying that we would have it every day, but it's just about listening to your body and listening to the nudges and just saying, what do I need?
Okay.
And going with that. So that's why I think wellness it's a very individual thing, although society, social media, the general media will have us think that it's like a formula.
Yes.
That we all need to be doing X, Y, and Z.
All the time.
All the time, yeah. But we don't. Most wellness practices are free, which they also don't want to hear.
What, you mean I don't have to buy that really expensive mud and put on my face? I could just hang out and just do me.
And you could even go for a walk without wearing those really expensive leggings as well.
Come now, we're not going to call names, but those expensive leggings need to pay for the expensive advertising. Let's not call names because you're going to get me in trouble.
But that's the thing. I think, out there's all these kind of misconceptions that we're being sold about wellness. And then we think, oh, we can't afford it. We don't have time. But it's about fitting it in for what works for you. So I can never prescribe a wellness practice to someone, but I can make suggestions.
Okay. And you've actually touched on something, because you're talking about how, when we look at the general wellness conversation, we are almost stuck in that phase of, I can't afford this wellness. And when you kind of look at the wellness conversation, it feels that women of color, let me be very specific here, Black women are not in the frame. How can we make the wellness conversation more diverse and more inclusive?
I think it's by us having the conversation in the first place, and us making sure that we're taking ownership of it, that we're saying it's not, you don't have to pay for wellness. You don't have to. Going for me, for some days, my wellness practice looks like being able to go for a walk on my own without my child around the local park. And that does wonders for my state of mind. Right. A long hot bath at the end of the day those are two staples of my wellness practice. They fill me up, they light me up, they refill my cup. And it's about us sharing what we do, but also I always come back to the quote by Audre Lorde about self-care being self-preservation.
Yes.
And that in itself being a political act.
Yes.
And that, even just saying it gives me shivers, because it was when I heard that, I was like, yes, this is important, because we need to be well to do the work that we need to do in the world, whatever that work looks like.
Exactly. And I think the fact is, you know, when we are excluded from that conversation, we also don't help, like you rightly pointed out, by having those conversations or walking into that new yoga studio that's open down your street. Yes, people may look at you, but we shouldn't be in a position where we are afraid to be in those spaces and say, well, I'm here. This is what I need, and this is what I need to take care of me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, so we could actually talk about this particular point for a lot longer, but I'm gonna circle back to this. Now, you have a piece in a blog called Selfish Mother, and you talk about just the title of the blog. I was like, okay, this is an interesting blog. You talk about how motherhood changed your personality. What were the changes that occurred?
Oh, wow. Oh, gosh, this one took me completely by surprise. But it was mainly the fact that I've always identified, and I love me a personality test anyway, but I always come out as an extrovert, in the sense that I get my energy from being around people. I love connecting. I'm not necessarily the loudest person in the room, but I don't think that that's what it's about. It's about where you get your energy from and,
right.
and what you enjoy. And so that has always been me. And then I became a mum, and it's lovely, but it is intense. That's one word that I would use to describe motherhood. And I don't think people are honest enough about what it's really like. And within that, I found that there would be sometimes, especially at the weekends, it would get to the end of the weekend and I'd be like, oh, I feel so trapped. The cabin fever, even if I'd been out of the house, was off the scale.
Wow.
And I realized that it was because I didn't have any alone time. And it was that juxtaposition of becoming a mum. I kind of had loads of time to myself. And I didn't even notice it. So I would go out and get my energy and be around other people and be revitalized from that. And then I would have my alone time. And then I realized that motherhood, you don't have that. It's constant, it's intense, and they're constantly touched and needed. And even when sleeping, was almost on alert, because I'm like, she's going to wake up.
Oh,
She's slept through, she's actually sleeping through the night, and I'm going to check on her at 3:00 in the morning. And I realized that actually I was becoming more of an introvert. I needed my alone time. I craved my alone time. That, for me now, that's a part of my wellness, is to be alone. That's why I talked about going on a solo walk. So, and it really does, even now talking about it, it still kind of does take me surprised that it changed my personality in that kind of way. But now I identify as an ambivert. So I still get my energy from connecting, but I do need that downtime.
okay. And, you know, I do know, not being a mother myself, but I do know friends with children, and I have very, very tiny nephews, and you find fingers under doors when you're trying to use the bathroom, and
fingers on the doors, they're sitting there looking at you. Like, I remember when my daughter was younger, and I'd be like, I'm just going to go to the bathroom, and she'd be like, okay, I'm coming. And then she's like grabbing her teddy to come and sit down with me. Yeah.
okay, all right. See, these are the kind of conversations we as women need to be having with other women who have not had children. Be prepared to have an audience in the bathroom. I'm not sure I'm prepared to deal with that, but okay.
You just get used to it.
So it sounds like your views on motherhood changed drastically from pre-pregnancy to now that you're the mother of a rambunctious toddler.
She's 5 now, actually.
Okay, so she's past a toddler.
Yeah, she's past. Yeah.
So, how do you deal with all the stages and still manage your business?
Well, that's interesting. I believe, like, I was talking to a friend recently who's got a 2-year-old, and I was saying it gets easier. It changes, but I do believe it gets easier. So, for instance, my daughter didn't really sleep for the first 18 months, not long stretches anyway. Whereas now I know I can put her to bed at 7 and I'm not going to see her again till 7 in the morning, except when I go and check on her. But so it's, for me, that gets easier. In terms of running the business, I now have a whole evening, which feels amazing. Also, she's now at school, so that changes things as well. So I personally believe it gets easier. Yes, you've got other challenges. You've got then other influences because they go to school, and I'm sure as they become teenagers, there's other stuff. But it's the early stages when they just need you. For me, that was the most challenging.
Okay. So, we look at how people talk about the idea of motherhood and what we should and should not do, especially in this social media driven world. So let me, because you're a mom, I'm gonna direct this at you. What are the characteristics of the alleged perfect mom in your world?
Ooh, okay. She has a tidy house all the time. Yeah, a lot about the domestic stuff. So the house is tidy. There's homemade dinners every night. She never gets angry. She wouldn't describe motherhood as intense ever.
Okay. So are these societal expectations anywhere near realistic or even right? And how do we address them?
Well, I think it's about what's right for the individual. So there's probably some mums out there whose house is really tidy all of the time because that's what they prioritize.
Right.
And maybe like their kids make a mess and then they tidy up straight away because that's their thing. So I'm kind of not into saying whether things are right or wrong in that sense for people. It's about how they want to operate and what they want to do.
Okay.
I know that's certainly not right for me. Yeah, just wait till the end of the day and try and sort it out. But I think there are societal expectations in terms of what we see in the media. Mm-hmm. I know, yeah, I think what we see in the media presents this picture, although social media has kind of changed that. People are being a bit more realistic about the challenges.
Well, yes and no, because on one hand, there are those who are rather, like, I really don't need to see where your placenta went. Thank you very much. That's not what I needed this morning. And then there are those that is like, okay, I had a baby 5 minutes ago. Look, my tummy is flat again. And I've just produced a movie and I'm jumping off a bridge while breastfeeding my baby. Like, I don't think I can manage getting out of bed today. So
no, and I think we always have to look at it as through the filter of who they are as well. And I hate, that saying, we've all got the same 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
Beyonce. It's like, yeah, but Beyonce has help, right? So Beyonce's 24 hours in my head is 48 hours because she has help.
She probably has a personal trainer. She has a stylist, a cook, or somebody else, a personal assistant. She has all of those people, and also permanent care for the twins and the Ivy and the Jay-Z. And so she then just has to do herself.
Exactly. And so that's why every time I see that flash up on Instagram, it makes me so angry. It's not the same 24 hours. Because like you said, she's not doing all those things. She's not trying to cook dinner, watch homework. I mean, most mums are concerned about where they're getting childcare from. She doesn't have that. So there can't be that comparison. And I think society, the media, gives us that kind of, oh, well, it's your responsibility, just figure it out. But I think we need to look at, I'm very much into curating your circles. So that goes for in real life and online. And so therefore you're being really discerning about what you're allowing in, and that has a massive impact on your self-worth, but also allows you to then not have a skewed view of motherhood or anything in life.
Well, that's true. And I think that whole the same 24-hour conversation, I think that should be taken off the table, because it puts pressure on for me to function just like you, but I'm not you.
Exactly.
And it puts too much pressure on people. And and we can blame and not blame, but we can actually say social media has a lot to answer for. Yet you actually pointed out we get to choose what we allow into our space.
Definitely. And when it comes to my self-worth work, a lot of it ends up revolving around social media. It's mad, but it does, because the amount of women that are like, oh, I want to start this thing, but so-and-so's already smashing it over there, or everyone else looks like they know what they're doing and I don't. I'm like, where does everyone else know what they're doing? Oh, on Instagram. I'm like, right, okay. And it sounds like such a small thing to be discerning and to curate who you're following and who you're allowing in. But it's actually a massive tool, because we're so addicted to these platforms, and the devices are designed to feed and fuel that addiction, that we need those kind of tools to help us to step away. And what it does, like a week away from Instagram, if you're a real Instagram user, a week away does wonders for your mental health.
I mean, this morning Instagram was down.
Yeah.
There were news reports about Instagram being down. Now, I'm an Instagram user, and I didn't even notice, because I try to not, the first hour of my day, I try not to post stuff. But it was the fact that mainstream news was reporting that a social media platform had fallen down. I'm like, this is a very surreal time that we live in.
Isn't it just?
And it's like, okay. And, people were panicked. People were not functioning. I'm like, they were down for I think 20 minutes, half an hour, something. But it was enough that it was reported on mainstream news.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's crazy about it is that it's almost like these platforms have become so habitual. So it's so nice to hear you say that the first hour of your day you don't use social. That's another one of my tools that I advocate. But people are so used to alarm goes off, turn over in bed and check. So they then get so panicked that it's down, because it's like, yeah, but that's what I do in the morning. What am I meant to do?
The one that has me is when I go into social media and go into my Insta and I see those kind of selfie videos or fresh morning wake up. This is how I just woke up. Pictures and videos. It actually makes my soul a little angry, because it's kind of selling to a lot of women that, hey, they just woke up looking like this and you don't look this good, so there's something wrong with you. Whereas what we're not taking into consideration, these women have gotten out of bed, washed your face, put on some makeup, they went for the fresh filter makeup, and then scrolled back into bed with a selfie stick and go, my fresh morning face. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Get out.
they hadn't even just woken up.
They haven't gone to bed
yesterday.
They haven't gone to bed.
Yeah.
And you're like, go and sit in the corner with your hands up, because if you were being honest, my sister, especially when I see Black women do it and their hair is all everywhere, and I'm like, you need to stop, because the headscarf should be on. If that was a fresh face filter, headscarf on. Little sleep corners in the eye, your nose a little greasier, a little, don't sell this, because they're young women who are going to then start fighting who they are, because you're trying to keep up with something that is not real.
Exactly. And it's we've done it with magazines. Like, you know how they're all airbrushed and isn't it? And then it just translates over into social media. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah. So, we're talking, and all of this that we're going through, we're not just, bitching about social media. This is actually because we're talking about something that is very dear to you, which is authenticity. And one of the mainstays of your work with A Life More Inspired is about women finding their authentic selves. So here's my question is, how can we dare to be our most authentic self when we are surrounded by the things we should, ought, must do in the world today?
Yeah, it's not easy. I'm not going to lie. It's not easy. But I think that it's a massive part of it is about being discerning about what you're allowing in, because that has a massive impact on the way that you're then viewing the world. And so for instance, I say that your phone, for instance, I don't follow people or interact with people on social media that I wouldn't want to invite in, not necessarily into my home, but how I see it as when my phone is sitting there on my sofa, why would I have someone there? It's like having someone there sitting on my sofa that doesn't make me feel good about myself.
Right.
So therefore, if I'm not going to have you sitting on my sofa, and that's quite a wide metaphor, or at my dinner table, at my dinner party, if you're not my kind of person and you're not making me feel good, then you're not, I don't need you to invite you into my space. That is a sacred space. That's a special space. And when we start to recognize that and to be discerning about what we have around us and what we're seeing, that can then in turn help us to start the journey of finding our authentic voice. Also, it goes into the work on who are you. And the women that I work with, it's in relation to the brand that they want to create or the idea that they want to bring into the world. Okay. So it's, in a sense, it's easier than just a kind of a generic who are you, because they are purpose-driven women. And so their idea is filled with this desire to help people, to bring a product to life that they know that's going to make a difference. So in finding their authentic voice, they're kind of using that creativity as a tool. So that's why I talk about creativity a lot, because I feel like it's a way to find out who you really are.
Okay.
And often you can start, one of the starting points could be, what did you want to do when you were a kid? What did you love to do before society told you that you couldn't?
That's a good question.
And it's so interesting because you find some women you ask it to who are a bit more evolved with their journey. They're like, oh my goodness, I love to write. And then they find out that there's elements of that in what they're now doing. Or I saw myself on stage, and that's what they're doing. So
okay. So I have gotten a question in for you from one of our listeners. And they would like to know, as a fellow podcaster, have you had catastrophic issues with a show, tech-wise?
Oh, interesting. No, I haven't. Not yet.
Touch wood.
Touch wood, yeah. I'm at my dining table now. I might just lie on it. No, I haven't. It's all been... Okay, there was actually the final episode of the season 1, which I'll be releasing later on this week. The only thing is that the sound quality isn't what I would have wanted it to be, but it wasn't a major tech issue at all, really.
Okay. And while we're on the topic of podcasts, what inspired you to start one?
Oh, well, I was listening to loads of podcasts, absolutely loved listening to them. And you know, when you've got that little niggle in your mind that just says, oh, you could do this, you should be doing this. And I always wanted my own radio show when I was a kid. So kind of following those breadcrumbs, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And then I started, and I just thought, let me just record and see how I get on with this medium of audio. And I loved it. I loved it.
It is slightly addictive.
It is. It really. I was doing lots of video before, like Facebook Lives and things. But there's something about audio that just it just strips back the layers. And I find myself knowing that it's a more intimate conversation, just being even more open, and I just love it.
Awesome. All right. And, you interview quite a range of women. So what is your podcast in terms of the criteria for guests and all of that? How do you pick the amazing women to be on your show?
A lot of them are within my circle, and it's about wanting to introduce them to my audience. And the podcast is called the Dream and Do podcast. That's the premise of it. So I talk to women who are dreaming and doing in action. And so I've had a lot of female entrepreneurs on there. But my latest episode that will be going out is a young lady who's got vitiligo, which is a skin condition.
Yes.
And I came across her because I was watching a Channel 4 documentary, and I connected with her on Instagram and then ended up having her on the podcast. And that was kind of a departure from the female entrepreneurs that I'd had on previously, but it still fitted within that dreaming and doing, because she'd always dreamt of being able to go out without her camouflage makeup. And she's now at the stage of being able to do that. So I really like the way that it's going in terms of, I don't put judgment on people's dreams. It's kind of no dream is bigger or more valid than another, but it's just giving other women the permission that when you desire something, when you have a dream for something in your life, you can make that happen in whatever way that looks. So yeah, that's what the podcast is about.
I like it. I like it. It's simple. It's straight to the point, and it seems to be very much inspired by the work that you do.
Yes, it is. It is.
And speaking about the work that you do, there's more to you, and it's like all the research I was doing, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So there's the affirmations, which we're going to talk about, because everybody loves a good affirmation card, and you have loads.
Yes.
But the one thing I found that I was like, I didn't know you did this. You still do strategic events to get people to learn how to use the social media tool that we've been talking about. So you teach, is it just women or anyone in general, how to build their Instagram in a strategic way?
Yes, yeah, because I've got this marketing background. I've been doing it for going on 15 years now, and being in the space that I'm in. So I help these women in my creative mentoring who've got this idea that's in their heads and on their hearts, and I help them bring it to life. But I've also got the skills for them to not only bring it to life, but for them to get it to the people who need it, which is the end goal. The people that need to watch, listen, buy, wear the thing it is that they're making. Right. And so that's where the marketing side of it comes in. But for me, it's about soulful marketing. It's about doing it in a way that feels good to you, that's going to connect with your audience. And Instagram is the thing that it just turns a lot of my clients a bit doally, to be honest.
That's the official term we're working with, people.
Doally. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a love-hate relationship with it, but there's also this big recognition that a lot of their client base is there. So I designed a workshop that was about how you can navigate your way around Instagram soulfully, maintaining your peace of mind, but also growing your audience and selling your stuff.
Okay. And speaking of selling stuff, let's talk about affirmation cards. How did that weave into the work that you're doing?
Well, how did that happen? So when I first had the idea for A Life More Inspired, and I kind of transitioned from what I was doing before, I knew that I wanted to create a platform that had various elements to it. And I've got a love of retail. I started my marketing career in fashion retail.
Okay.
I love retail, and I always wanted to have my own shop. So I was like, oh, we've got the technology now. The barrier to entry is super low. Let's start with that. And affirmations were a big part of me growing my self-worth and helping me with the self-acceptance and self-belief. And so I was like, okay, I want to create something so that I can spread this to more people. And so I thought, well, let's do some affirmation cards. So that's how they came to life. And I loved them.
And apparently, is this true that love is one of your favorite words to use?
Yeah, I overuse it so much. There was a few years ago on my blog, there was something you could do, some kind of software that it was able to tell you what one of your most used words were across your website kind of thing in your blog. And love was obviously, way up there for me. I'm like an all or nothing girl. I either love it or I'm just like, ugh.
Listen, that's how life should be. It's really, there shouldn't be in betweens. It's either yay or nay. Let's not go there. Yeah. All right, so we have come to that point in the show where we ask for your so loud moment of the week.
Ooh.
Yes, so what's your so loud moment?
So this is where I'm highlighting people, right?
I wish I did a video that explained this. Yeah, I did.
You did? Yeah, I thought it was highlighting people who've done really good things.
Yes. It can be you, it can be people in your corner, it actually can be, people further afield, it could be people on your social network who are really rocking something amazing. And the last couple of episodes that we've had, I've had people go for 4, 5 people. Somebody tried to outdo and go for 6. I'm like,
oh wow.
So
well, I've
no pressure, no pressure.
Okay, it's fine. I've got 3 listed here, and I'm really excited to shout them out. Actually,
cool.
So the first one is Tamu Thomas from Live 360. Her brand is a holistic lifestyle brand that includes fashion. So she had a spring summer collection and she's working on her autumn winter collection, and includes I think she's got candles and journals coming up. She did a retreat. It includes retreats as well, and it's just a really beautiful brand that is designed for women that are kind of late 30s, 40s upwards, because we're a market that just aren't recognized and aren't seen by the mainstream. And it's all about encouraging us to make space for everyday joy. And I just love everything that she does, the way that she just owns. She's such a beautiful example of that purpose-driven woman who has had this idea that is so filled with her being her authentic self, and she's channeled it into this beautiful brand, which is making such an impact on women that they just really need it. So
awesome. Okay. Who's the next one?
The next one is my brother.
Okay.
Keeping it in the family. He has a blog called Music Football Fatherhood.
Okay.
And it's all about, it started anyway with the premise of changing the perception of Black fatherhood, because we all know what we see in the media, and he wanted to make a difference. So he is doing some really, really good work. I think the BBC described him as being the dad's version of Mumsnet.
Okay.
And he spoke at various government offices in the last few weeks and had some really high profile gigs. He's doing some really good work, so I wanted to shout him out.
Okay.
And the final one, the third one, is an organisation called Periodical Diary, and it's a lady called Kay, and what they do there is campaign against period poverty. So they go into schools, because I don't know if a lot of people know this, but there are so many young girls out there who don't have the resources and the finances to buy sanitary products. And which is obviously really distressing for them. And there's no funding available for that. And there's stories where teachers are then providing these girls with sanitary products. So what they do over there is campaign against period poverty, and provide sanitary products to young girls who need them, and sharing advice on menstruation, knowledge and support. And I just think it's one of those really important areas. Like, I don't know about you, but as young girls, it wasn't something that was really spoken about or celebrated. And as women, knowing our bodies is so important. Like, the day I started to track my cycle and be able to know my moods and what to expect and not expect was a bit of a game changer. And what they're doing here is not only helping with period poverty, but helping to educate girls on their bodies. And I think that's amazing.
If you had started with that alone and went with that alone, that would have been worthy of the chairs that's about to come. But your brother and Life 360, these are all amazing things. And I don't know which one I want to champion and cheer for the most. But you're right. This whole period poverty the first time I heard a discussion about period poverty was from a friend who was doing work in Kenya. And and you're like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But to hear that in this world, in what we call the Western first world, you have girls who are unable to go to school because of being unable to afford sanitary products is just crazy. So, yes, I absolutely believe that needs to be done. And they, all your sold out moments for the week are just incredible. And please provide us with their links so we can share them. And a huge round of applause. All right. So, I'm still, that topic of period poverty is one that we need to, as women, constantly put out and discuss. And I think it's something that, I would love to discuss some more. But, let's get back to you because I still have some juicy questions for you. So looking back on your life, looking at, motherhood, relationships, business, and everything, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Oh, I love this question because there's so much that I'd want to tell her. So much that I'd want her to know. But at the same time, I know that I had to walk this path that I've walked to be who I am now. So this question often conflicts me because I want to write her a letter, like I have done, of all this stuff. But then I'm like, I kind of don't want her to read it because is it negating like who I am now? But what I would tell her would be that everything is going to be okay. One thing that I didn't mention through this is that I have a birthmark on my left eye, which I use camouflage makeup on. And that has been a big part of my identity kind of growing up. I was really shy and really quiet. And it was because I was hiding behind it. It was only in the last year that I've kind of talked about it publicly. And so when I was 18, I think I'd only had my camouflage makeup a couple of years. And I was in the throes of kind of rediscovering who I was because I now was able to, the camouflage makeup gave me the freedom to be myself in a sense. So there's so much that I would want to say to myself on that, but it would just mainly be that I'm enough. That's what it would be. And that it's okay for you to go out there and be yourself.
I like that. And I think we need to remind ourselves in the now that we are enough.
Yeah.
That I think that's important to that. So, with everything you do, and we've looked at how you support others, and you work with others and mentor them. I know you went through a mentorship program yourself called Mentor Matcher. How did that help your business grow?
I think the main way was through the connections I made
Okay.
I made some really lovely friends through it, and connections of women that were all kind of trying to achieve the same thing. So I think, that was the main thing. When I first started my business, I have an amazing set of girlfriends that I've had, kind of a lot of them since school days, and they love me, but they don't get me. I always say they love me, but they don't always get me. And it's because we're on different paths in that sense. They're doing really well in their corporate jobs, and I think thought I was a bit crazy for doing what I do. And so I was desperate, especially at the beginning, to find a network of women who just got it.
Right.
In that sense. And that's what it gave me, a whole pool of women who were like, yeah, they get it.
Okay. So, what are you currently reading, or what was the last book you read?
What am I'm currently reading the founder of KKK, Christina Carlson, or Carla Carlson, something like that. Her book about dreaming, I can't even remember what it's called, but I'm listening to it on Audible. And it's about, I don't know if you do this, you sometimes read a book and you're like, I could have written that.
Yeah, once or twice. Yeah, I think I've had that happen.
And I'm having that with this book. It's great, but I'm like, it's so funny because a lot of it is based on the principles that I talk about of dreaming and doing. And I'm like, yeah, this is a book I should have written.
Well, you pointed out something earlier when you say just because she's slaying it in her lane doesn't mean you can't. So when are we getting your book?
Soon, pal. Seriously, I do have. There's a definite thread of an idea there for me, of things that I want to explore, and something that's really been on my heart recently is the whole. We hear a lot about just be yourself and be authentic, but really breaking up down the steps of how you can do that.
Right.
Especially as Black women, we have been taught not to do that. We have been taught to code switch, to edit ourselves, to be who we needed to survive.
Right.
And when we've done that for so many years, then flipping to suddenly, well, just be yourself. There's so many women that come to me, it's like, yeah, but I don't know who I am. So I feel like there's something there to explore.
And I think, sometimes the whole just be yourself movement is like, well, yeah, but what if I really don't like the self that I am now? So you're asking me to be something that I'm not 100% okay with. It becomes almost counterintuitive advice.
So it's almost then like be your higher self, isn't it? The self that you desire to be.
Yeah, I think be your higher self is, I think might be, that might be the message there.
Because I think that even if you don't like the self that you are now, there is a self that you do like.
Yes.
Because you know that, so you have to know what you don't like to know what you do.
This is true.
And that is your higher self, that part. And it's tuning into that. And that's a journey for some women as well.
Yeah, okay. So here's a question. Now, like I said, you work with women, you mentor so many, you work on a creative space. How do you personally deal with how do you bounce back from setbacks?
I use the NLP principle of it's not failure, it's feedback. And I come back to that a lot. And also I've got this, I'm quite spiritual in the sense that I have this deep belief that I'm being supported and I'm right where I need to be. So yes, at this moment, that setback feels really awful, but I know that will pass and the lessons will appear. Sometimes the lesson appears the next day. Sometimes the lesson is like years later, you're like, oh, that's why that happened. But I think when you can hold on to a belief that it's all part of the plan, then it makes it easier to deal with. So that's how I personally deal with setbacks.
Okay. And so we've covered how you deal with setbacks. We've looked at the work that you do. So what is next for you, Nicola? What's next?
Oh, what's next? Well, at the moment, I am working on my next mastermind. So I'll be I love working in a group setting with women and having them bounce off of each other and create that network amongst themselves as well. So working intensely with about 10 women on a mastermind is one of my projects that I'll be working on, as well as developing additional products.
Okay.
That's something that's really on my heart to do. So my affirmation cards that I've got at the moment are kind of generic ones for any situation, but I really want to create specific ones. So affirmations around abundance, an affirmation card deck for dealing with stress,
Okay.
a specific one for self-belief. That's where I kind of like to go. So yeah.
You know what? That sounds really amazing. And once you do, please let us know, and for us to be able to share and talk about them. And just final question, how can people reach you?
Oh, well, Instagram is my playground. That's where I spend most of my time. Instagram stories. I love Instagram stories. So my Instagram is A Life More Inspired. And then recently I've kind of fallen back in love with my Facebook community as well. And it's called A Dreaming and Doing. And
Okay.
it's a lot of fun in there. What I talk about is soulful marketing, self-care and creativity. So like, for instance, on a Thursday, so tomorrow I've got an honesty thread. And in there we can just really be honest about what's going on in our week, leave the social media filters and gloss and say what we're worried about or what we're scared about or what we're excited about. So it's just a really lovely community in there. So those are probably the two main ways. And then my website, which is alifemoreinspired.com.
Okay. All right. That's fantastic. So thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right, folks, it is that time again, and we are wrapping up. Now, if you want to connect with our amazing guest, pop over to her website, or actually, if you pop over to our website, her link will be there. And, find out more about what she does. Stop over and look at the amazing affirmation cards she has, and find and check out her work about living a life more inspired. So, guys, you know how to reach us. Drop us a message and find us on Twitter. Talk to you later. Bye.
You've been listening to The Shine Out Loud Show. If you want to connect with us or let us know what you thought of today's show, be sure to follow us on Twitter at Shine Out Show.